Hello all, and welcome to the Rails board meeting. Today is Friday, September 22nd, 2023. I'm Alex Vancina, president of the Rails board, and I call this meeting to order at 1:01 p.m. Mary Kate, would you please call roll?
Monica Caldecott. Rosie Camargo.
Here.
Jean Carroll.
Here.
Alice Creason.
Here.
Gwen Gregory.
Here.
Robin Hellenthal.
Here.
Diane Hollister.
Here.
Jennifer Hovanek. Renee Leva. Julie Milivek.
Here.
Tom Stagg. Vanessa Villarreal. Karen Wojtek.
Here.
Catherine Yanakowski.
Here.
And we have a quorum. Oh, and Alex Vancina.
Here. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's-
All right, we'll handle guests and public comments at the same time. Let's start with guests here in Coal Valley.
Monica Harris, Rails.
Mark Hatch, Rails.
Ryan Hebel, Rails.
Mary Kate Murray, Rails.
Any comments here in Coal Valley? Okay, are there any public comments, guests or public comments in East Peoria?
Hello, Kendall Orison, Rails and RSA. I have no public comments.
Thank you. Next on to Burr Ridge.
Karen Swanson,
Any guests in
Rails.
Burr Ridge?
Karen Swanson, Rails.
Brad Porter, Lauterbach and Naaman.
And Emily Feister, Rails.
Thank you.
public comments
Any?
here.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the State Library. Do we have anyone at the State Library with us?
Hi, this
All
is
right.
Mark Schaefer at the Illinois State Library, and no public comment.
Thanks, Mark. Mary Kate, would you please read the names of guests on Zoom?
Currently, we have Dan Bostrom, Grant Halter, Layla Heath, and Renee Leva joined us at 1:03 p.m.
Okay. Are there any public comments from Zoom participants?
Nope.
Did we receive any by email?
No.
Thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to move any item to the regular agenda for further discussion? Okay, may I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Alice. Second, Julie.
Alice and Julie, thank you. Mary Kate, would you please call roll?
Rosie Camargo,
Yes.
Jean Carroll,
Yes.
Alice Creason,
Yes.
Gwen Gregory,
Yes.
Robin Hellenthal,
Yes.
Diane Hollister,
Yes. Yes.
Julie
Julie
Milivek,
Julie Milivek.
Yes.
Karen Wojtek,
Yes.
Catherine Yanakowski,
Yes.
and Alex Vancina.
Yes. All right, next we'll move on to the annual audit report. Sharon, would you get us started?
Certainly will, Alex. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm still in the morning. I'm very happy to say that we have completed the 12th annual financial audit for Rails. Yay! Everything went well as always, and we have a clean opinion. And I'd like to introduce Brad Porter, one of the principals at Lauterbach and Amen, and as well as the lead on our audit fieldwork for the year. Brad will deliver our report of the fiscal year 2023 audit, and we ask for your acceptance of this report. The reason why we're asking for your acceptance versus your approval is to avoid giving the impression that Lauterbach and Amen are under our supervision. They are an independent accounting firm, and this would give the impression that their independence has been prepared. And without any more ado, I will pass this to Brad.
Sounds good. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brad Porter. I am here on behalf of Lauterbach and Naaman as the principal overseeing Rails financial statement audit process. Here to provide a very brief recap of the documents that we've issued at the conclusion of our fiscal year 2023 audit process. Special thank you to the board for allowing me on site here out in Burr Ridge today. And before I go any further, I'd like to give a special thank you to Sharon, Monica, and the rest of the team that made this audit possible. An audit is really the culmination of many lines of communication and conversations that are happening throughout not just audit time, but throughout the entire fiscal year. So the team does a tremendous job of making sure that there are safeguards in place over Rails funds and that there are sound internal controls as a whole. So we've had a very good relationship with them and we can't thank them enough for all that they do. Now, at the conclusion of each audit, we issue 3 pieces of required communication. The first of which is a 3-page letter that we issue under Statement on Auditing Standard number 114. No need to refer to that letter at this point. Ultimately, in short, we are required to state whether or not we had any disagreements or difficulties that we had encountered with management during our audit process. In the body of what we call our SAS 114 letter, you'll find no such disagreements or difficulties noted. Now, moving on to the audit report, I'd like to just highlight a couple of kind of intangibles per se. We'll start on page 1. My understanding is everybody either has a digital copy or a paper copy of the audit. So I will just kind of announce a couple of page numbers to follow along with. Again, starting on page 1. On page 1, you're going to find what we call our independent auditor's report. In addition to stating your responsibility as management of Rails, which is to ultimately prepare a clean set of financial statements for us to work off of, we go on to state what our responsibility is as your audit firm, and that is to generate an opinion on the financial statements that are provided. I'm happy to report, as Sharon had alluded to, that we've issued a clean, unmodified opinion for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2023. Ultimately stating that we as your auditors believe the financial statements to be free from any material misstatement and that there are sound internal controls in place, as I had pointed out. So congratulations. Now, pages 5 through 12 are another section that I tend to point out to boards. I will be the first to say, I know there's a lot of financial information in this document. Pages 5 through 12, what we call our management discussion and analysis, are really going to help to break things down into words. Charts, graphs, things that are a little bit easier to understand than the actual financial statement. So just wanted to point this section out to you. There's going to be some financial highlights and some things like that. So definitely will help kind of from a bird's eye view overview of fiscal year 2023. Now, moving on to page 20, I just wanted to point out a couple of fund level income statement highlights for fiscal year 23. On page 20, you'll find your general fund and your capital projects fund. For fiscal year 2023, we had a net increase in our general fund balance of about $1.9 million or 9% for the fiscal year. This was largely due to significant increases in our interest income, as well as the increase in our APC grant funding amount for fiscal year 2023. We ended the year with about $22.4 million in accumulated fund balance in our general fund. Now, I did want to highlight that general fund is comprised of 3 different sub-funds, which are administration, LLSAP, and delivery. And if you were curious as to how certain line items performed during the fiscal year, you can refer to pages 45 and 46. Now, for the capital projects fund, we had a design reduction in our fund balance of about $129,000 for fiscal year 23, ending the year with about $2.225 million in accumulated fund balance. Let's move to page 38. I know boards tend to be a little bit curious as to how our IMRF pension plan is performing. And as exemplified with fiscal year 2023, it is quite volatile and very difficult to talk about. So ultimately, as a reminder, the IMRF actuarial valuations are conducted on a calendar year basis. So this runs from 1/1 of a certain calendar year through 12/31. And therefore, we had used the 12/31/2022 IMRF actuarial valuation for the footnote disclosures and for the government-wide balance sheet accounts. As of 12/31/2021, Rails had a net pension asset over $15 million. That number was significantly reduced to only a $2.1 million asset. And I say only lightly because ultimately you are still over 100% funded, which is fantastic. all of my advice is that you continue to meet your IMRF employer contributions. It's going to swing with the market, and likely will have significantly different results as of the end of this calendar year as well. Now, lastly, the third piece of required communication is our management letter, which is oftentimes the board's least favorite part of my conversation. But as I had kind of alluded to during my initial thank you, this is an incredibly clean management letter. We had no best practices recommendations for the team. We had no internal control findings. The only comments that are listed within this management letter purely relate to upcoming accounting pronouncements. So these are for transparency purposes only. They give the board a little bit of a heads up as to some of the standards that are coming down the pipeline. And as we've been trending in recent years, we actually don't have any implementation guidance available for statements 100 and 101 at this point. So we as auditors are still trying to piece these standards together as well. We will have resources available for the team, and that should help with the implementation process. But rest assured, the team has done a tremendous job with the implementation of 87 and 96 in recent years. That concludes my kind of 10-minute overview of fiscal year 2023. I'd be happy to answer any questions that came about.
Any questions? All right. Thank you, Brad and Sharon, and everyone who worked on this. Appreciate that. May I have a motion for acceptance of the audit report for fiscal year 2023?
I move to accept the audit report for 2023. This is Karen.
I'll second Jean.
Karen and Jean, thank you. Mary Kate, would you please call a roll?
Jean Carroll,
Yes.
Alice Creason,
Yes.
Glenn Gregory,
Yeah.
Robin Hellenthal,
Yes.
Diane Hollister,
Yes.
Julie Millivek,
Yes.
Karen Wojcik,
Yes.
Catherine Yanikoski,
Yes.
Rosie Camargo,
Yes.
and Alex Vancina.
Yes. Okay, moving on to the Rails financial report. Back to you, Sharon.
Thank you so much, Alex. And I did just want to comment before we move too far as a thank you to LNA and Brad and his team for how easy they made the process, and my team as well for everything they did to make it possible and during the process. So
Of course, thank you so much.
so now moving on to my financial report. And if Brad needs to be excused, he
Yes,
certainly
sorry.
can, so he can make it to his in-service day firm.
Yep, betcha. Time to go pack some boxes of food. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, moving on to my financial report, you will find the financial reports for the month of August 2023 in your packet. The August 31st general fund cash and investment balance of 21.2 million would fund approximately 18.6 months of budgeted fiscal year 2024 operations, which declined slightly from the last month, mostly due to not having yet received any APC grant payments so far this year. General fund revenues through August of over $2.6 million were approximately $1.7 million below budget due to what I just mentioned, because the APC grant revenues are budgeted evenly, but they're received sporadically throughout the year. And this is partially offset by higher than budgeted reimbursement revenues, primarily from greater than anticipated participation in the EBSCO database group purchase, which is fantastic. As well as investment income. This was budgeted at 3.75% to be conservative based on Federal Reserve interest rate projections at the time that the budget was finalized, but interest rates are currently just under 5.6%. And this is of course due to the Federal Reserve continuing to raise interest rates since March of 2022. And at their meeting this week, they did not raise interest rates this time around, but they continue to point to one more increase prior to calendar year end, as well as fewer cuts than previously projected during calendar year 2024. So we may continue to stay above budget with this revenue item. And this was also offset by above budget fees for services and materials. And this is primarily due to timing differences between the actual and budgeted billing patterns for the Find More Illinois membership fees. Moving on to general fund expenditures. So through August, those were $3.5 million, and they were just over $442,000 below budget. And this was due to lower library materials expenditures from a higher than anticipated, as I mentioned above, participation in the EBSCO database group purchase, because these are just a pass-through item, so they completely offset the revenue side of things. As well as not having yet made the purchases for the additional K through 12 and special language materials for the eRead Illinois program, and lower contractual services expenditures from timing differences in the receipt and payment for our delivery outsourcing contractor, as well as not having yet awarded any cataloging membership or My Library Is grants. And I'm just going to throw in a little plug. The first grant period for cataloging membership grants will close in November, and awards are expected to be made soon thereafter. And the My Library Is grants are typically awarded much later in the fiscal year. Personnel expenditures were also below budget due to the 4 vacant positions that we are currently recruiting for, and as well as favorable to budget health insurance selections by staff, because we budgeted for worst case scenario, highest expenses possible. Vehicle expenditures are below budget due to timing differences in receiving and paying our monthly fuel card expenses. And I wanted to note, because I had mentioned that skimming incident of fraud on our fuel cards this last board meeting. So just early this week, we received communication from WEX, who provides our fuel cards, that we should expect to see a credit on our account for the full amount of this fraudulent activity, which is fantastic news. We were celebrating earlier this week. And all of these under budget expenditures were partially offset by above budget equipment rental, repair, and maintenance agreement expenditures. And this was completely due to timing differences between budgeted and actual expenditures for our Zoom services renewals. And that's just about all that I had. Are there any questions?
All right, hearing none. Thank you, Sharon. Sorry, was there a question?
I just said thank
No.
you, Alex. Sorry.
Oh, all right, thank you. We'll move on to reports. I have no report at this time. Committee reports were included in the agenda packet. Are there any questions or additions regarding the committee reports? Okay, if not, next we have Monica with Rails monthly report.
Thank you, Alex. So I wanted to start out the report today with a discussion that I know has been on the minds of a lot of library folks, including some conversations that I've had with some folks here at the board around safety and security in libraries. So across the last month, many Rails members and people in the Rails service area, and particularly public libraries, have received bomb threats that have been very distressing to the library community at large and in general. We wanted to let you know just a little bit about how Rails is talking to libraries about what they need and what they need to feel supported, and just also let you know a little bit about some of the things that we have planning moving forward. So while there was originally some threats that were received by libraries in August, there was a second uptick that happened last week. There was, by our understanding, 16 libraries, Rails member libraries, that were affected by these bomb threats during that period of time of the last month. So as these started to come up and move forward, we did put in a call to get together the library directors that we knew at that point had been affected, and were able to meet with 15 library directors, including 14 Rails member library directors and the director of Chicago. just to talk through what people's experiences had been and talk about what kind of information would be helpful in order to help us move forward. I want to thank those library directors for taking the time to meet with us and to talk. I also want to thank ILA for also coming to that meeting and being available to talk about solutions that we could move forward and look at together. So following that meeting, we were able to come up with a few potential options based on the feedback that we received from those who had been affected by the threats. So the first piece is one thing that had been noted by all the directors was just how stressful and difficult that this is for the staff that is going through these process. And they really need additional ways to provide support for those staff members. So Rails has the availability for a critical incident EAP program in which we can call in somebody for a virtual or a one-time visit that can come and meet with staff. Many libraries do have these supports through their own EAP programs, but for libraries that wish to pursue it, they can contact Rails when they have been through this process, and we'll have somebody come and help through that kind of emotional side that is really, really important to make sure is addressed. You also may have seen on the directors list that went through today that we have a networking meeting coming up on October 5th. That meeting is open to directors who would like to talk about this process and talk about what they can do to prepare and how they can move forward. We generously have had some of the directors who have been through this offered to be there and kind of talk about their experiences, but it's also intended as an opportunity for libraries to share materials that they have and what they have gathered and put together so they can share with one another. Finally, we've heard about a training program that many people had found useful in a few months past that was offered by the FBI out of Boston, where they looked at a lot of potential strategies as well as policy building. And so we are now in contact with FBI Boston to look at providing a training program for anyone in Rails who would like to be able to attend and see what kind of options they should be preparing for and have that kind of expert advice. So we wanted to make that clear that these are all options that we are currently moving forward on. But we've had a lot of great conversations as a result of this terrible thing that has happened. And we do have a lot of libraries who've had really great ideas about ways that we can continue to focus on these issues of safety and security in libraries. There have been suggestions that we recommend to the state library that they consider some kind of reporting in IPLAR on how much money libraries are spending on safety and security, in part because they want to be able to report that back to the legislators just so they know exactly how this is affecting libraries, both from the standpoint of community interruption and disruption to staff, but also financially what this means. We're also looking at ways to create some best practice materials that can be shared by the people who are creating these policies and rules moving forward. So I know this has been a big topic of conversation for a lot of folks here. And so before we go into the rest of the report, I just wanted to open it up to the board in case there were additional questions, comments, things that people wanted to note about this process.
I just have a quick question, and maybe this is not something you know, but is this something the FBI is investigating?
To our knowledge, yes, that at this point that there have been enough incidents within a shared geographic area that does push this up to the FBI's information. I did have a conversation with some folks from PLA, the Public Library Association, and that was one thing that they had made really clear is that it's very important that libraries who are affected by this, that their law enforcement agencies are reporting this to the FBI or that the libraries themselves are, because it's very important that kind of measure of knowing how many of these things that have happened within a certain 10 to 14 day period can help push it into a different category of support. They said that in other cities that were affected by similar kind of situations last year, that's what led to the apprehension of the person who was doing those kinds of threats.
Do we know if these threats have been entirely in Illinois so far, or are they seeing reports from other states as well?
I have not personally seen other trends in other states at this moment, although as they said at other times, like last year, it has happened.
Sure.
One of the things that was noted at the recent ILA board meeting was the the timing of a series of the threats came only minutes after the Senate hearing on book banning ended. The broadcast was on like CNBC or whatever, and it was within minutes of that ending that a group of libraries received very similar messaging. And it was very specifically stating Illinois. And it also referred to Illinois highways, one of them. So the Illinois anti-book banning legislation had been mentioned in that hearing.
There has been some speculation about that in the press as well. One thing I will say is that when we did talk with the directors who had received threats, is we did ask if anyone had received a threat that specifically mentioned any motivation. And to our knowledge at this point, there has been no motivation mentioned, but that connection has been made in other places as well.
Do you know if like, I know that the first round is done like online, was the second round also again online? Because they were trying to track the IP address.
Yes, the information that we have is that mostly everything that came in through chat programs and some through web forms. And those web forms then may have come in through an email, but that's what we know.
All right.
In this EAP program that you were referencing, is that something that individual libraries would contact Rails if they were interested?
Yes, so anyone who we know has received a threat, we have sent that offer to, and if we hear of any more, and I hope there are no more, but if we hear of any more, we will get in contact with them with the same option. Any other questions from anyone on this particular issue before we move to the rest of the report? I do want to thank the board for their attention to this issue. I know a lot of folks have been very concerned about all of the members throughout Rails, and I know our staff here at Rails has been as well, and are really trying to find the best ways to be supportive and be helpful in this environment. So if you have additional suggestions or you hear things from your colleagues that you'd like to pass on to us, please don't hesitate to get in contact with me. We'd be more than happy to talk to you about this. Okay, thank you all. I do want to share a bit more in terms of the Rails report and some of the other things that have been going on at Rails this month. First, we had a good event right before this meeting where we were able to network with some area folks from the Quad Cities area. But one of the things that came up and that was not in this report, so I wanted to make sure that you were hearing more about, was the Public Library Internet Survey. So all libraries in Illinois should have received an option to participate in the Public Library Internet Survey that went out from the Secretary of State's office recently. That should have been distributed to all Illinois public libraries, and it is looking at how your library interacts with technology. And this is in support of some of the action that's going to be happening through broadband. And so many of you may have heard about a lot of the federal monies that are going to be available for further broadband access. We want to make sure we know what's happening in Illinois when it comes to internet speeds, when it comes to equipment. We have a team here at Rails that worked very hard at helping the Secretary of State with providing good potential questions, which includes Ann Slaughter, Grant Halter, Jeanette Durucki, and then I know Troy Brown from Heartland also helped to develop questions. We want to thank them for their work on that and want to encourage all Illinois libraries to please fill out the survey and share this information, because it'll be really helpful to the process moving forward. We also wanted to let you know, I know we let you know a few months ago that Schaumburg was getting ready to start on Find More. Schaumburg Township District Library will go live at Find More, Illinois, beginning in late September. So we're excited about that. Similarly, the Public Act 1030100, which is on banning book bans, the Secretary of State's proposed amendments are now available to review. And so in your packet, you should have saw a link to that. There is now open for comments. So any library that has comments on that legislation that they would like to share are encouraged to do so. At the time of the report, we thought that comment period would end on October 20th, but since then we have learned it will end on October 25th. So you have 5 more days to enter your comments and send them on. Greg McCormick let us know that those comments will go to Pamela Wright. Contact information was in our last e-news, or I'd be very happy to send that on to you as well. But definitely want to encourage libraries to look at that and make sure that they're able to comment on these changes. We are also involved with a program that was originally set up by the Vernon Area Public Library, but since then there are 79 public libraries that have signed on to the Book Challenges on the Rise, Support Your Freedom to Read event that is coming up on October 2nd at 7 p.m. That program is going to feature Secretary of State Alexi Janulius. I will be on the panel along with 2 other authors who have been affected by challenge books, and we'll be talking about how challenge books affect communities. This is a little bit different than a lot of the library programs that we have previously been to, as this is more focused at the community at large in understanding the issue of banned books and intellectual freedom in general. So looking forward to that event, and I hope that you all can tune in if you have the opportunity and availability. Also wanted to share some really great news about the Illinois School Workers Symposium. They just had their inaugural event just on September 20th, this last Wednesday. More than 300 school library workers from across Illinois attended this virtual event that was really focused on making sure that they understood issues of advocacy and intellectual freedom and many other issues that were identified. This was a wonderful joint program that was pulled together through the partnership efforts that we have talked about frequently at the board. So there was participation, of course, from ISLE, from Heartland, from ILA, and from Rails. Dan Bostrom has been instrumental in moving this process forward, and so I want to congratulate him on such a successful event that happened last Wednesday, and we hope to be able to repeat it soon. Libraries were also included in the Illinois Broadband Lab webinar series. Ann Slaughter actually was able to present on adoption, affordability, and digital inclusion as it relates to libraries and broadband in general. Just one more step in trying to get libraries recognized as a very important partner in broadband adoption and digital equity. And so we were really excited to move that forward. You can go and view that if that's something you haven't been able to do yet. Also wanted to note we had a very successful joint meeting with Heartland back on August 29th at the Illinois State Library. I want to thank the Illinois State Library for hosting that event. We were able to get together the leadership teams of both systems for an all-day event where we had the opportunity to learn about each other's operational plans, have folks who do similar jobs meet one-on-one, and then come up with opportunities for collaboration. So it was a really great day, and one that we do hope to be able to do on a regular basis. And soon we will look forward to hopefully having a joint board event in 2024. So right now we're hopefully targeting April, but we'll let you know more as we get a little bit closer. Finally, if you are going to be at ILA this year, we want to encourage you to come to eRead's 10th anniversary party that's going to be at ILA Annual. We'll be able to celebrate all the wonderful things that have happened with our eRead program. It's going to be a really fun event, and we're really happy to celebrate with all of our colleagues that will be at ILA. So please come and join us. It will be Tuesday, October 24th from 5:30 to 7 and at the North Terrace. So you'll come and meet us then and we'll see you. Also, the Illinois Library Association's public policy created their legislative priorities, which they then recommended to the executive board of the Illinois Library Association. Rails included a proposal this year that would be focused on treasurer bonds. So as some of you may know, that there's a legal consideration that treasurer bonds must be bonded at 50% of the operating budget of organizations. One thing that we learned through our relationship with LIRA, the insurance agency that creates a lot of economies of scale for insuring libraries, was that many other types of government many other types of government are only required to be bonded at the 25% or 10% level. So we created a proposal that would move libraries in that same direction. If libraries were moved to that 10% level that school districts are at, that would save libraries about $324,000 a year with no changes to service at all. So I'm pleased to report that the Illinois Library Association Executive Board voted to make that one of the legislative priorities priorities of ILA for this coming year. We also, or the ILA Executive Board also is focused on the electronic resources equitable access, which is going to look again at a new option for equitable access for ebooks. And then another piece that is all about the maximum that people can do for capital improvement. So moving from a $25,000 cap to 30 or 35,000. So more about that to come, but very excited about the possibilities for the next legislative session. And we're looking forward to that as well. Any questions about anything in the Rails report for this month? Yes, Karen.
I have a comment. My cousin is a librarian without any formal library experience, a paraprofessional at a Catholic school. And I sent her the link to join the Emily School Library Workers Symposium, and she sent me back just some input that it was very well run.
Awesome.
And she got a lot out of it.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that, Karen. Thank you for sharing that. And it was a really important group that we don't always reach, and I'm so glad that it was identified as being one to focus on.
More of the realistic aspect of today's world in schools.
Yep. Thank you, Karen. Any other comments on the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Grant Halter was unable to join us today, so we will. Oh.
Not Grant, Greg.
Oh, I'm sorry. Grant is here. Hi, Grant.
Hello.
Grant is going to be presenting the Rails data report.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for having me. I was looking back in the Rails board archives and realized I haven't done a data service of the month report since February 2022. So a lot has changed since then. So I'm happy to be back. Let me get a PowerPoint going real quick. All righty. So I know there are a lot of new faces on the board since that last time, so I'll go give a quick overview of what is the Data Analysis Department, newly named Data Analysis Department. We're glad to be recognized like that. So the Data Analysis Department is myself and Jeanette Drucke, who you hear from a lot. Jeanette is doing great work with all the school, with the SLATE project, School Library Data Project, previously known as. We will soon have an intern, which I'll talk about on a later slide, which we're also very excited about. What do we do exactly? In general, we focus on applying the data analysis process to any and all things at Rails. So that starts at planning, guiding, strategizing with data on all kinds of different projects at Rails, and then fulfilling the steps beyond that is getting the data, processing that data, analyzing and exploring that data, which is the fun part. It's all fun. And then we present the data, share it out, have more meetings with the staff or whatever project leads, whoever project leads there are, and just repeat. So we kind of have our toes dipped in every branch of the organization, which is really exciting to kind of be on that level with everyone. Why have a data analysis department? Well, we support the organization, as I said, and in general, I describe it as we help the organization be more effective and efficient with our work. So that means a lot of behind the scenes stuff from varying degrees, helping on projects and services, assisting in research, and finding deeper trends and patterns and analysis for relevant projects across the organization from every department. You could kind of, in that sense, that kind of side of our work is similar to IT, where we're kind of behind the scenes, but every presentation you've heard, all the other service of the months you've heard at the board, the data team has been behind that in some way. We also, of course, are member facing in some ways, sharing reporting stats like IPLAR, building those dashboards, which I'll show later, a lot of analysis projects we do to show the trends of the library world and report those back out. and also various levels of data consulting and running the networking groups so that we can help educate and advocate data in libraries to help all the libraries kind of improve and be more efficient with their data process. Because we know, of course, there's tons of data in libraries. So that's a quick overview of what we do. So how did FY23 go since the last time I talked to you? As I mentioned, Jeanette was maybe a week or two in last time I presented at the board. So we are ecstatic to have her and all the amazing work she does, not only with the SLATE project, but also with a bunch of other research projects that she's been doing. So that's been a big change. Supporting members in a variety of ways. We do a lot of surveys, either directly to members or kind of behind the scenes to push out data and results for the members, such as the service inequity studies, which you've heard about. We've surveyed the cataloging courses. We've surveyed the city libraries to figure out their specific needs. Many of you hopefully are familiar with the extra certification questions that you've seen. That's our decision to ask those questions. We'll analyze those and share out those results once they're all tabulated. And then, as Monica mentioned, also the Secretary of State Digital Equity Survey, we were really excited to be involved with and share our insights and help kind of steer that in a positive direction for our members. We also maintain a bunch of dashboards that are member facing that I will show here. Just a few examples to get a taste for what we do is here's kind of my go-to IPLAR dashboard, which has a variety of interesting and hopefully useful scatter plots, which are my favorite, which you can also download everything just to see a different way of kind of that Common Core data that we see. There's lots of things, expenditures per versus population, material circs versus population. It'll load live demo, all kinds of things. So this is one of the more popular dashboards that I see people viewing that I like to highlight. For the staff supporting dashboards, here's a great example with some interesting data going on right now is the Explore More dashboard that we look at a lot. And I like to show off this one because you can see the huge jump in usage since Chicago Public Library joined. It is dwarfing our previous usage. But even if I remove Chicago Public Library, you see kind of those solid increases in the program overall. So these are the kinds of things that I build for staff so we can help evaluate the program, see how it's improving, progressing, what are the trends, and things like that. All kinds of fun stuff. A similar report, this is BiblioBoard. I have reports both for staff and for members. This is just the dashboard of all the uses that members can come and download, select their filters, and report back their usage to their libraries to see how they're using the product. And of course, we monitor this as well to see how that program is doing. All right, so that transitions me into supporting Rails and staff. Like I said, we are kind of behind a lot of the services and a lot of the fun graphs and charts and results that you all see from our organization. And that involves a lot of updating and maintaining spreadsheets and dashboards and charts in the background, making sure data is up to date with new IPLARs or whatever new non-Rails data is published. Also involving, we work on a lot of investigating and sharing insights, such as the Libraries Economics Drivers Project that you've heard of. Other examples that I've worked on is kind of reviewing public library director turnover, how are Cards for Kids, how's that program progressing using the IPLAR data. We can see the trends and patterns. And then we also ran a survey for the EDI cohort to see to evaluate how that was doing and sharing that information back with the managers to make those decisions. Another project I loved was working on the new e-read formula with Layla Heath and Anna Beam, especially of figuring out how do we upgrade that formula so it's more appropriate to grow that program, and of course equitable and affordable for the members as well. And that was a long project that had a lot of data, a lot of insights going back and forth, but that was a fun time. All right, so then what do you have to look forward to? As kind of been mentioned, we're in the process of hiring for a data analysis intern. And there's a few reasons why we wanted to create this position. First is, I mean, there's a lot of data work that Rails has going on. So any help that we can get to clean data, gather data, pull through some analysis or build a dashboard is always welcome. But we also wanted to create this position as an opportunity because there aren't many opportunities for library staff to work directly with data, but also with systems. So we wanted to create this as a new opportunity to see if we could find anyone that is looking for that specific kind of experience, of has an MLIS or is a current student in a library program that is interested in data, because we know that ripple effect of teaching someone data will kind of carry through in their library career will be really powerful. But we also know that not all the library programs have robust kind of data sides of them in terms of kind of this spreadsheet analysis, dashboarding tool. So we're happy to offer kind of our expertise and kind of guide someone in this learning position to grow. It's just a 1-year internship, and we're really excited to see who comes out of that. Other future projects that have been talked about and I'm really excited to get working on is a post-COVID study, how have libraries bounced back since kind of the COVID dips in all those usage stats. Mark last month in his board presentation mentioned the iPad and the new data tracking they have. So I'm really anxious to get into that and see just all of the new data that we never really had access to in an efficient way to help make delivery more efficient. The resource sharing map hasn't been updated in several years, and with the help of a new tool that I'll mention in a second, we want to update that and add a lot more data to the resource sharing map so it can be more useful to our members and to Rails itself. Also kind of a combo project of something we're calling Railcar, but also Data Hub. Is Rails has a lot of data all over the place. We have L2, we have IPLAR, we have school data, we have iPads data from the academics, as well as all the census data that we're pulling in. And right now it's all kind of scattered across the organization in our different files and folders. So we're working on building seeing what the possibilities are for building kind of a database that can house all of that in one place. So reporting out is easier for us, but also Rails staff, especially to have the most up-to-date data, but also have more access and easier access to get that rather than asking Jeanette or I for a spreadsheet and then things change. So we're really excited about that project. To see where it goes, because that'll be a big jump from where Rails data was when I started several years ago. Another big fun jump are these two icons, Tableau and ArcGIS, so the two tools that we're excited to get going on. Tableau is if you're not familiar, is a kind of a dashboard data visualization tool that we've been using. What I showed you just now is Google Data Studio, which doesn't have as many features and functions, so we're a little limited in what we could build. So Tableau, we're excited to get going with that and build more fancy and exciting data dashboards to share with you all and the members. And then ArcGIS is going to be the tool we'll build the new resource sharing map in, especially just because it has a lot of features to make that an efficient project, because mapping GIS work can be a steep learning curve. So we're excited to get going with this tool, not just for the resource sharing map, but we have a lot of ideas to build out useful maps because of the way the Rails geographic boundaries are. There's a big spread, and there's a lot of differences between all the areas. And with all our data, we want to show and highlight that for Rails work, but also to help libraries advocate for themselves. So I think that is all I had. I am happy to answer questions now, if anyone has anything.
Grant, it's Catherine, and I just have a question for you about the new platform where you're going to be pulling all of the data together from the disparate files, folders, and places. Are you going to be able to layer that data so that you can comb or cross through several of those reports at the same time? Like if you wanted to add the census data into the CERC data onto the, have different layers, or are they going to stay separate categories of data that you have to look at independently?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was kind of one of the major reasons of pulling all this data together. The tricky part with that is they all have all the libraries in these different files like L2 or the School Board of Ed education data, they all have different ID numbers. So the challenge sometimes can be is matching all what Rails, what L2 calls a library versus what the schools call it versus what the academic data sets call them. So that's the primary reason, absolutely, is to bring all that data so you can report out a single report using fields from multiple different sources, and how powerful that will be, and make it more efficient for us to run those reports and create dashboards and such like that.
Really exciting.
Yeah.
And I just had one more question. Do you have counterparts in other library systems, whether Illinois or elsewhere, where there's other people who are doing these types of studies? I'm just curious if this can expand beyond the regional level, just for the library field in general. It's really interesting work that you're doing.
Yeah, so the answer is kind of. When I was in the public library, there was a handful of us across the country that I would meet with that were specifically data titled staff at a library, and those groups, and we would meet quarterly, and they kind of go up and down based on who's around. In the systems, there is someone pretty similar at the Wills system in Wisconsin. They focus more, their model as an organization is a little different than Rails, but they effectively do the similar work of pulling in data, analyzing it, sharing it out to their members, and stuff like that. As far as I know, we've talked to, forgetting the name of the one in Minnesota, but they don't have a data specific person. A lot of times we get connected with people in the IT divisions that just happen to have some data savvy. But otherwise it's Jeanette and I, and that's kind of who our go-tos are. So it was a huge relief when Jeanette was hired that I have someone directly to bounce off all these data ideas off to, but we're always open to that. And we, in some discussions, we've been told that we are looked to as kind of a leader in the kind of this regional system data world, just because we're fortunate to exist in this position and are kind of pushing things out. So this data hub, data palace idea has caught interest from other systems that we've talked to. So however we end up setting up that process will hopefully be a model for others, whether they have data staff or not, to replicate and be more efficient with.
Wonderful.
Hey Grant, it's Monica at Coal Valley. I just wondered if you might want to say a little bit about the data internship that you are currently working on and what that might look like moving forward.
Yeah, so I mentioned that briefly, but the data intern, yeah, so we have several applications at the moment. It's still open though, so if anyone listening is interested or knows someone who might be interested, it's open to data and library focused people. We'd love them to have degrees in one or both, or in process of getting one. And we have a wide range of data projects that could be worked on, and that's kind of the one of the benefits of how we structured this position is we have a lot of work that Jeanette and I can do, but can get stretched thin in sometimes. So there's spreadsheet work, there's dashboarding work, there's map work that will really benefit both the members and the Rails staff, just to kind of start chugging through some of these spreadsheets to help out all of our projects. But we're really excited to be able to offer this opportunity because as I mentioned, there aren't many library data people by those titles. So the fact that this position exists is a huge benefit, and hopefully, again, a model for other libraries who are interested in hiring a data analyst or a data coordinator or whatever that title is, that they could kind of see how Rails is handling our positions and replicate that.
Thank you, Grant.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Next, we'll move on to the State Library, and Mark is here today with the State Library report.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Mark Schaefer, and I'm a consultant at the Library Development Group here at the State Library. And on behalf of Secretary of State and State Librarian Alexi Janulius and Greg McCormick, the Director of the State Library, I bring greetings, but I also bring apologies from Director McCormick for not being able to be here today. The State Library is not immune to what is happening up in the libraries and Rails. We spent 2 hours outside this morning because the threat finally reached the State Library, which it was kind of, in my own opinion, I thought it would have happened sooner than this, given what's been going on in the libraries and Rails. So Greg's very busy today, and he apologizes and looks forward to providing the overview at a future meeting. So just a little bit about me for those of you that I haven't met or talked with before. My main areas of focus are administrating the 2 public library construction grant programs and working with the literacy office here in administering literacy grants. I'm in my 18th year at the State Library and my 30th year with the Secretary of State's office. So I'm happy to announce that I will be giving a very short report today. And just to kind of piggyback on what Monica said about Public Act 103-0100, the book ban. Again, the public comment period is now open. It can be found at, it's in issue number 36 of the Illinois Register. She mentioned before, the comment period is open until October 25th, and any public comments must be sent and addressed to the Secretary of State's General Counsel and not the Illinois State Library. Now, the State Library's grant offerings for the annual construction grant program, which we used to call it the Live and Learn, and that's changing, and for the public library per capita grant, those will be announced in the very near future. Both of those grants are due after the first of the year, which is the enactment date of Public Act 103-0100. So libraries that need to apply or need to have the policies in place prior to submission of those applications. Right now, the school district per capita grants are in full blast or full bloom. They're due October 15th. And so far, we have received 326 applications from 719 eligible school districts, which equates to about 45% of those eligible to apply. The state library will be sending out a submission reminder, and we'll be working with the systems and contacting libraries to ensure that they apply for these grant funds. And then lastly, we are excited to announce that during ILA in Springfield at the end of October, Secretary Janulius will be addressing the conference and will also be holding a reception for the attendees at the Illinois State Library on the evening of October 25th. More information on the reception will be forthcoming, and we will distribute that and disseminate that information through the systems as well. And I said it was going to be a short report, and that's what I have.
Thank you, Mark. Does anyone have any questions for Mark?
I just want to say I'm sorry you had to go through all that today, Mark, and I thank you for making time for us on this day.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Thank you. So moving on to new business, Monica, would you start us off with the annual report?
Yes, thank you, Alex. So in your packet, you should have a copy of the Rails fiscal year 2023 annual report. For those of you who may be new to this process, this is part of an annual report that we submit each year to the Illinois State Library. But first, this report has to be approved by the Rails board. This report is put together by using the goals and objectives that we have established within the Rails strategic plan. So everything you see here is something that we have been working on as an organization over the last year, and they're all listed by the goals and objectives that have been voted on and approved by the Rails board that we're moving towards in 2025. So in addition to this being a great summary of all the things that happen in Rails, it really gives you a sense of where we're at and the strategic plan goals as well. A lot of Rails staff work on this document, as you can imagine. And so there a lot of time and effort goes into this. Even Mary Witt put in a lot of time and energy in on this document before she retired this summer. So there's a ton in here, so I don't want to kind of like cherry pick individual items, but I did want to open it up in case there was anything in the report that you wanted to speak more about, or if there were other comments, questions about anything that you saw in the annual report for this year.
Monica, I was so excited reading this report. It was just thrilling to see how much your team has accomplished in 1 year. It's like, how did all this happen in 12 months? So just congratulations on all of the accomplishments of you and your team. It's just wonderful to read.
Thank you so much, Catherine. The Rails team is incredible, which I think many of you know we feel that way, but really doing so much right now. And so it's really exciting when you get to kind of see it all put together into a 25-page document to see just how far we've come in just a year. So it's a great group.
All right. Any other questions or comments? A lot of great progress this year. Thank you. Okay, so yes. May I have a motion and a second to approve the annual report and submit it to the state library?
So moved, Julie.
Julie, thank you.
Second. Second, Gwen.
Julie and Gwen, thank you. Do we need a roll call for this?
We might as well.
Roll call, please.
Alice Creason,
Yes.
Gwen Gregory,
Yes.
Robin Hellenthal,
Sorry.
I want to say it again.
Robin Hellenthal,
Yes.
Diane Hollister,
Yes.
Julie Milovic,
Yes.
Karen Wojcik,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Catherine Yanakowski,
Yes.
Rosie Camargo,
Yes.
Jean Carroll,
Yes.
and Alex Vancina.
Yes. All right, thank you. Next, we have 2 new member applications this month. I'll turn it over to Dan to present those.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, as was mentioned, we have 2 requests today. I apologize. One of them was a little bit late, but they're both school districts, public school districts, and we really wanted to get both in before the deadline to the Illinois State Library School District grant, as Mark was talking about. That's October 15th, and that's a really important deadline for them. So I'll start off with the first one, Taft School District 90. You might call this an inside job because Barb Miller, who is our Rails Consortial Services Supervisor, is on their school board, and she connected me with their principal and their librarian. We had a great conversation, and I'm very excited about their membership. I actually got a chance to go to the school and talk to them a little bit about Rails services and everything, so they were very excited. The second one that came in a little bit late is the Summit School District 104. And I got actually connected to Tiffany Kane, who's the district librarian there, through Karen Egan at the State Library. They were interested in the school district library grant, and the school district was not previously a member. So Tiffany joined the district last spring. She knows about Rails through her time at Tinley Park Public Library, which is great. And we had a good conversation, and I was able to kind of squeeze them in here at the last minute. So very excited about that. Can I answer any questions about either of these libraries?
All right, hearing none, may I have a motion and a second to approve full membership in Rails for Summit School District 104 and Taft School District 90 in Lockport, and request final approval from the Illinois State Library.
I'll motion.
I'll second Alice.
Rosie and Alice, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. All right, since unfortunately Greg is not able to join us today, we will save that overview of the Illinois State Library for a future meeting. And that brings us to Rails board member reports. This is an opportunity for board members to share any news about their area or library. Does anyone have anything you'd like to share this month?
Well, I do. So partly to people, including Dan Bostrom, asking about it. Yesterday, we had a meeting at Northern Illinois University about the Children's Literature Conference that we used to have there, and apparently it was last held in 2016. I don't know if anyone remembers that. Well, Rosie does, because we were talking about it. So we had a meeting with different people to talk about how that might be revived in the future. So there's definitely interest, and we know there's outside interest. So we're going to see what might happen with that and how Rails and might support Rails members and so forth.
Yeah, that's great, Gwen.
Yay! So I'll talk to you about that more, Dan. And we also at our library this weekend, as part of Family Weekend on campus, we are having miniature golf at the library, which I'm going to be at helping guide people around tomorrow.
That'll be a lot of fun.
I'm so happy for Gwen because I worked at Magic Tree in Oak Park. And so we would be the sellers at the conference. So that was a lot of fun. So I was like, oh, I used to have to stay at the dorms and we'd set up things. And we did for many years that they were hosting it. And I think that was the last year I was able to work it. So we're getting ready for Hispanic Heritage Month. A lot of libraries are doing some fantastic programs and support. I'm a member of Reforma. So this is our really great time for library communities to support their Spanish speaking communities. We're doing every Thursday. We're having, I missed it. Yesterday was Agua Frescas and it was like a DIY how to make it. And then every Thursday leading up to our big Taste of Latin America. So we have a magician, an Argentinian couple coming to do our kids show next Thursday. After that, salsa classes, and after that, we're gonna have dance folklorico. So we're really excited. We're trying to host at least 9 to 10 countries with food because people come. repeat that. So we're very excited. It's one of our bigger events. Wakanda Night was so popular during Black History Month. And so we really wanted to showcase our wonderful community and bring some access to our community too. So we're excited. So check your local libraries and what they're doing. Gil Borden has a beautiful alejibres in their gallery. So definitely take some time and see that.
Thank you, Rosie.
Diane is raising her hand on Zoom.
Oh, go ahead, Diane.
Thank you. What I have to say isn't anything to be shared. It's a concern of mine. Earlier this month, I think it was on 5th of September, two media sources that I read about were mentioning that there are several states that have pulled out of ILA and called me naive, but I was just taken aback. Because as long as I've been a librarian, I just never imagined states would pull out. They mentioned Montana, Missouri, Texas, and possibly Wyoming. But the other part of the article, which just was chilling, was, and this is a quote, right-wing lawmakers in at least 9 other states, Arizona, Georgia, Illinois, Louisiana, Mississippi, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, South Dakota, and Wyoming demand similar action, meaning to make an exodus from ALA. And I haven't really, I mean, I brought it up at our board meeting the other day, and I can't see it happening, but I don't understand why some of these smaller libraries, I mean, maybe the rural ones in Wyoming, but did they just succumb to pressure? Did they pull out? I don't know what to think, and it's been bothering me. So I thought I'd see what everybody else has to say. How does it strike you? I mean, it's pretty upsetting to me when I heard this.
Thank you, Diane. It is upsetting. And I'll start out, and then if anybody else has anything that they want to add. So there have been some articles in particular, but some discussion from some states and state libraries in particular that are pulling out as members of the American Library Association. And it's usually based around political pressure around intellectual freedom, materials challenges, and book ban issues because of the stance that the American Library Association has taken on the freedom to read. So typically these discussions center on that particular issue. There's not a lot of appetite for that in Illinois, I would say, although there may be individual legislators who may ask for some of those things. I would say by and large, you know, that's not likely to affect things in Illinois, but you know, other states, in my time on ALA Council for the American Library Association, other states are under many different political pressures than we have in Illinois. And it's been a very difficult time to be in libraries in some of these other states. And it's why they often look to Illinois for their leadership, particularly around things like Secretary Janulius's book banning bill, because a lot of those things are not happening in other areas of the country. So I would say it's symptomatic of a lot of those issues, Diane.
Well,
And there are.
Am I to interpret that all of the libraries in Montana, Missouri, and Texas, this precludes their membership to ALA, or can they still retain their membership? I'm just foggy about how this works.
No, my understanding is that in those states where maybe a state library has pulled out in terms of their membership, that individual libraries within those states still maintain their membership with ALA.
How does that affect ALA when they have states pulling out like that?
It affects them financially, mostly. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
When did that start happening?
This year.
Yeah, and a lot of the states that are most affected are the ones that have legislation around book bans and local control. These are the states where They are making librarians and teachers criminally, in some cases, criminally or civilly liable for if a child gets a hold of a book that they consider
Yes.
whatever sexually explicit or whatever.
Or harmful is the word they use a lot.
Harmful is their big one. So, yeah, it's a big concern for a lot of our colleagues out there in other states.
Thank you.
And then I'm just gonna put my ILA hat on. Some, you may have seen, you may not have seen, but legislative meetups, in-person legislative meetups are coming back. But the dates are changing, so they will be in November. So watch for that information coming out. We're very excited to have those in-person meetups again. As you may know, ILA did a survey around these and people felt very strongly that we needed to do them in person because it just, that the online ones just were not the same.
I'm really excited for the opportunity to attend these in person again and be able to meet with people individually. So happy that those are happening.
Absolutely. Great to hear those are coming back. Is the plan to have the schedule be November going forward, or is that just for this year? Okay.
Yes, the change in schedule kind of aligns with the way the sessions, the legislative sessions go. So it puts us ahead of the new legislative session, because when they were in February, we were generally coming in toward the end of a legislative session when things were already, or moving or already dead in committee, whereas this will put us on the front line so that we can be introducing what ILA is going to be backing in the new legislative session, and getting folks on board sooner in the process.
Fantastic. Okay, did anyone else have anything else to share? All right, hearing none, then we'll move on to meeting recap and agenda building for our next board meeting, which will be October 27th. Of course, before then, the ILA conference is coming up, and I hope we'll see you all at the ILA reception on Tuesday, October 24th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. in Springfield. Our next board meeting will be Friday, October 27th at 1 p.m. in Burr Ridge, and we'll have a report on the Explore More Illinois program and also best practices for internet security. Is there anything else before we adjourn? All right. Thank you all for your time and attendance. This meeting is adjourned at 2:17 p.m.